So my name is Carolyn Chipman Evans. We have been creating and running the Cibolo Nature Center for 31 years now. I want to talk to you about an initiative that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is called the Cibolo Conservation Corridor Initiative. So a little bit about us. We were founded in 1988. We were the ones that became the stewards of the Cibolo Creek. We loved a small stretch of it. Now we host tens of thousands of people every year, and we've been fortunate enough to, with our partners, protect over 850 acres of land adjacent to the Cibolo Nature Center along what we call the Cibolo Conservation Corridor. So not long after we started the Nature Center, we started with 100 acres of city park, and we thought that was just, wonderful that we had our arms around this wonderful little place. But pretty soon we realized that we are not an island. We are indeed downstream from a booming town. And over time we realized through our research partners that this stretch of the Cibolo recharges the Edwards and Trinity aquifers. No one else was protecting this watershed, so in 1998 we created the Cibolo Conservation Corridor Initiative. We work in 4 ways to promote conservation. We work through research, stewardship, that means protecting adjacent lands, protecting our creeks, of course education. I'm sure most of you are familiar with some of the education programs we do at the Nature Center, and civic engagement, working with our partners in the community. So what's a watershed? Everybody talks about a watershed, but really, what is it? Well, we are in a basin here. A watershed is basically where the water falls, the springs come up, the water comes downstream, it's filtered by our trees and our fields, and it provides our clean, clear water in our lakes and streams and aquifers. So our watershed, it covers 77 square miles and approximately 23 miles of the Cibolo Creek. It starts up at the headwaters with Brown Springs and Champy Springs. And there are many streams in our watershed. Many of you know them. They're Minger Creek, Frederick Creek, Curry Creek, Ranger Creek, Browns Creek. Each one of these is important. Each one of these contributes to our Cibolo watershed. So you can see down in that city of Bernie, you see the little green speckledy thing. That's the Cibolo Conservation Corridor and the lands that we have protected around the Nature Center. But you can see our headwaters is right here up past Bernie Lake, just upstream. So, when we started the Nature Center, we loved the Cibolo Creek because it was beautiful and it was clean and children could play in it, and it seemed like a wild and, lovely place. But over time, we realized that the Cibolo Creek is a very special creek, and this watershed is very special. It's the reason that Bernie is here. It contributes to the aesthetic beauty and the quality of our lives, the economic welfare in the community, and it has one of the largest recharge features in the state. This is not just your ordinary cute, pretty creek. This is a beautiful and important place. So at first, our conservation corridor really focused on protecting adjacent lands to the Nature Center. After 30 years, with the help of partners, like I mentioned, we now have over 850 acres protected, including the Her Farm and the Cibolo Preserve. And while we, meaning the Friends of the Cibolo Wilderness, have done much to protect our watershed, we need help. We have much bigger work to do in our community. We need the help of our city officials and our citizens to partner with us to create a healthy watershed. Yeah. This isn't really funny anymore, is it? It's kind of beginning to feel that way, isn't it? But that's why we need help. So our watershed is in jeopardy. The Nature Conservancy some years ago identified this area as a high priority for conservation because the potential threats are great. Degradation of water quality, the reduced aquifer recharge, and diminished quality of life. So the Nature Center over the years has learned that we have a number of tools in our toolbox. We've been able to pull a whole lot of them out. We do everything we can think of to promote conservation of the Cibolo corridor and the Cibolo watershed. So we have received gifts of land along the corridor. We have purchased land like the Herf Farm. Private individuals have put their land into conservation like Bill Lindy and the Cibolo Preserve. We lease land like we do from the city of Boerne, and we use conservation easements. And in the city of Boerne, we have begun to implement some codes that can help. But still, we often choke our creeks. We treat them like drainage ditches. We place them in the back end of buildings where dumpsters belong. We don't leave room for trails and access for wildlife or protection of our creeks. We need stream setbacks. We need low-impact development to filter that water before it gets into the creek, before it gets into the aquifer, before it gets into your faucet. So here's a little diagram of a great thing that we can do in our community. Many, many, many communities across the country, across the world do this. This is not rocket science. This is a great, easy thing for us to do. It just takes doing it. Providing adequate stream setbacks to buffer the creeks, and that filters the water and prevents polluted water getting into our water supply. This is also important not just for keeping the water quality high, but protecting us from flooding. This also makes economic sense. Recent research shows that for every dollar invested in conservation yields up to $10 return on the investment. Conserving open land saves taxpayer dollars. It protects water, it reduces flooding, it impacts and provides economic benefits and recreation opportunities. We learned something from our neighbors in Houston recently. We just need to remember it. It applies here too. So tonight we're gathered here to brainstorm on what we can do for our watershed. And this is the first step, being here. As Bob said, this is a great thing to see a room full of people. You're here because you care, and you're here because you believe that we can do something. So next you're going to hear a great thing about how to keep family lands and family hands, how to protect land. You'll also be hearing from Hill Country Alliance on what other communities are doing. Like I said, this is not rocket science. Other communities are doing great things to protect their watersheds and their streams. And I want to close reminding you to remember a quote that has meant everything to me. And Margaret Mead said it, and you've heard it all a million times, but I really believe that never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has, and you are them. Thank you for being here.